Pregnant, what now? Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, uncharted ocean. You're excited, yet filled with uncertainty. This is how many will feel when they find out they're pregnant. Thrilled for the new life ahead, yet unprepared and oblivious to the tidal wave of change that is to come. It's almost like sitting an exam on a subject that you've never been taught, and no amount of study will ever prepare you enough for. However, in this exam, if you get a question wrong, it could be a matter of life or death. On the flip side, if you get the question right, or even just a little bit right, because I forgot to mention earlier that no one can get full marks in this exam, but if you do get a question right, then the reward is much more remarkable than any diploma or certificate. Now, I know what you're all thinking, that having a baby is not on your radar right now, or maybe not even at all. And I'm definitely not here to convince you otherwise. But having a baby is something that more than half of Hong Kongers will end up doing. So even if you don't have children yourself, you'll more than likely know, work with, or even employ people that do. And so I feel it's just as important that you know what happens. So, how much have you been taught about this life stage? Have you given it much thought? What do you know about the pregnant lady on the bus or the couple in your building with the new baby? Have you even spared them a thought? We spend so much time focusing on our education and careers, but there's more to life than work, isn't there? So the reason I'm here is not to tell you how, why, or when to have children, but to tell you a little bit more about what you can expect if you do, and why it should be on everybody's radar. To tell you a little bit more about me, like many of you, I went to university. I studied for 5 years to become a vet. I was very career focused and went on to become a partner of a large veterinary clinic here in Hong Kong. Then in 2022, about 10 years into my career, I had my daughter. And I was definitely not prepared for the massive life transition that followed. For me, it wasn't the physical changes of pregnancy or even the trauma of giving birth that I found hardest. It was the change in identity, the shift in priorities, the loss of self, and the inexplicable mum guilt that I felt every time I attempted to do something for me. I would have found it really difficult to imagine this life for myself when I was sat in lectures just over a decade ago. So I hope that by sharing my experiences and the lessons I've learnt, that some of this will stay in the back of your mind, and it's not such a shock when the time comes. I also hope that by raising awareness, we all can develop a little bit more compassion for those who are navigating this chapter. Before I talk more, I want to make sure that I bring everyone in the room along with me. To the males in the room, please don't switch off when I start talking about motherhood. This is part of the problem as far as I'm concerned. Men are also not educated enough about what happens when we have children. And I mean we. Yes, women carry the baby, but everything else should be a shared responsibility. So stick with me, boys. Just by a show of hands, who's heard of the term matrescence? Not many. Matrescence is the physical, psychological, and emotional changes that a woman goes through when she becomes a mother. It's a relatively new term developed in the 1970s and represents a massively overlooked yet highly important area of science. The first thing I want to talk about with regards to matrescence are the physical changes of pregnancy. Can I just say how incredible is the female body, if I do say so myself? To be able to grow another human being is just mind-blowing. You might be aware of some of the common pregnancy symptoms: nausea, incontinence, insomnia, heartburn, morning sickness, swollen feet. You name it, we get it. But did you know that the average pregnant lady gains 11 to 16 kilos during their pregnancy? Imagine carrying that around with you the whole time. I've been lucky that both my pregnancies have been relatively smooth, but it's still really hard work. So make sure you give me your seat on the MTR, guys. And then we actually have to give birth. Again, wow. What the female body can go through, regardless of delivery mode, is just gobsmacking. Some liken the energy required to give birth vaginally to that needed to run a marathon, or to have 7 layers of tissue incised whilst conscious in a cesarean just goes to show how strong us girls are. So I've spoken a little bit about pregnancy and birth, and I'm sure you're aware that both of these are needed to bring a baby into the world. But what you might not be aware of is the impact of changing hormones and the profound effect that they have on us. It is the single biggest hormone change in the human life cycle. The only other remotely similar times are adolescence and menopause, but these are much more gradual. These hormone fluctuations are responsible for maintaining pregnancy, the birth itself, and for breastfeeding. But what I wasn't aware of is that these hormones are also responsible for structural brain changes visible on MRI, some of which are permanent for life. So when you have a baby, your brain actually changes. It's not surprising then that if our brains are being rewired, that this might have some impact on our mental health. 1 in 4 new mums and 1 in 10 new dads are thought to experience perinatal mental health issues. And this is likely an underrepresentation because many go undiagnosed. You've probably heard of postnatal depression, but there are many other manifestations. Postnatal rage, postnatal anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, to name just a few. It's also worth remembering that as we're navigating these physical and mental changes, we're also responsible for this tiny little creature that we've brought into the world. At the same time, we're contending with a severe lack of sleep, which is further impacting our ability to function. This sleep deprivation comes from being woken up every 2 to 3 hours, all day, every day, for several weeks. It's worth noting that this may continue way past the 14-week mark, which is when we're expected to return to work here in Hong Kong. A recent study showed that when Hong Kong increased its maternity leave from 10 weeks to 14 weeks in 2020, we saw a 22% reduction in the rate of maternal mental health issues. Some companies and countries are offering much longer maternity leave periods, so hopefully Hong Kong does follow suit. It would stop many mums from leaving the workforce, I'm sure of that. For me, it was these months post-birth that I found the hardest, known as the 4th trimester. Hormones were all over the place. I didn't feel like myself, lonely, anxious, tired. The struggle was definitely very real. The final thing I want to touch on regarding matrescence is the world around us, or rather our place in the world. Suddenly, pretty much overnight, life is completely different. Things have shifted. Dinner and drinks with friends becomes nap times and nappies. Putting all our energy into our career becomes darting out the door bang on 6 o'clock so we can be home for bedtime. Is your career still following the same trajectory it was even just a few days ago? Do you even want it to anymore? A strange thought for those of you who are working so hard now to secure your dream jobs. In many societies, it still remains the focus remains on the mother's role being the primary parent. Even today, the decision or even chance that an employee might have children continues to impact job opportunities and benefits, especially if they're female. That being said, things are changing, albeit rather slowly. This can be seen in the gradual narrowing of the gender pay gap, although it's still estimated that women are paid 20% less than men for doing the same job. It can also be seen in more evenly shared maternity and paternity leave policies appearing in some companies to allow for shared parenting. So what now? What's my advice to you guys here tonight? My advice is to get ahead of the game. Start planning your finances now. It might allow you to take a slightly longer maternity leave should you wish. When thinking about your career path, is it worth factoring in a break so it doesn't feel so forced when the time comes? Start thinking about your approach to childcare. It shouldn't necessarily need to be the mother's career that takes a hit. When job hunting, be aware of the maternity and paternity policies of your new company. Do they offer flexible working arrangements? What support do they provide for new parents? You might not need this right now, but you'll be surprised at how quickly this creeps up on you. My biggest tip, though, for expectant parents is to set up a solid support network. This will take some effort by the individual, but it's definitely in the interest of employees, healthcare systems, and governments to encourage and facilitate this. After all, in my opinion, happy, supported parents are much more likely to return to work and full productivity and also reduce the burden on already stretched healthcare systems. So why on earth are people still having children? Or maybe they're not. Global birth rates are declining, and Hong Kong has one of the lowest in the world of 0.75 births per woman, which is much lower than the global replacement rate of 2.1. So much so that the Hong Kong government is now offering a $20,000 incentive scheme to encourage people to have children. Talking of money, and to put that into perspective for you, let's wind back 20 years, and it would have cost around 4 million Hong Kong dollars to raise us. Back in the good old days, less of us went to private school, less of us went to university, and overall the cost of living was less. But what now? Fast forward to today's society, and there's a need to succeed. Providing education, resources, and environment to raise a successful global citizen comes with a price tag, and it's now estimated that it costs around 6 million Hong Kong dollars to raise a child from birth through to university here in Hong Kong. Even the birth itself, if you decide to give birth in a private hospital, can set you back well over 100,000 Hong Kong dollars, and that's just day one. And it's not just the financial burden that's affecting people's decision to reproduce. Increasingly demanding work cultures, prioritization of careers, especially in females, lack of supportive policies, and societal shifts in expectations are all reasons for the decline. Plus, you have the negative impact that having children may have on the environment and the uncertainty of climate change, conflicts, recessions in today's modern world. It's all enough to put people off. So you may be asking why I've allowed myself to get back in this state. A question I've asked myself on the more challenging days of my pregnancy. Is it societal expectation? Is it tradition? Was it a mistake? Is it the human need to nurture or to make a carer to look after me when I'm older? Is it to create a legacy or to fulfill a life's calling? Whatever it is, many of you will find yourself in this position in the not too distant future. Imagine by then that you lived in a world where pregnant ladies were always offered a seat on the MTR because we all knew how tired her body might be. Imagine by then we lived in a world where people smiled rather than tutted at the couple with the crying baby in a restaurant because they knew how hard it might have been just for them to get out of the house. Imagine by then we lived in a world where organisations paid more attention to the needs of new parents so that they felt supported and informed as they embarked on this journey. This world is possible and times are changing. I hope that my talk will encourage you to prepare for this life stage through education and planning, but also that organisations, employers, and society in general start to take this more seriously. Above all, though, Find that village of support they say that it takes to raise a baby. It's actually needed to raise the whole family. Thank you.